The slave market was alive with noise, the smell of sweat, metal, and fear filled the air. Shouts from merchants echoed across the square. Chains rattled as frightened beings were pushed forward. Some cried out, others remained silent, broken by years of cruelty. In the center, under the harsh light of burning lamps, stood a young alien girl. Her thin arms trembled, her eyes were downcast, and the heavy collar around her neck rubbed her skin raw. She was small, fragile, her hair tangled and her body covered with dirt. The guards pushed her forward roughly, laughing as she stumbled. She had been sold many times before. Each new master was worse than the last. Some had used her for work, until she collapsed. Others had treated her with cruelty just to see her cry. Her heart no longer believed in kindness. Every time she was dragged onto the stage, she thought only of surviving the next owner. The auctioneer's voice cut through the crowd like a blade. Here we have a rare one, small but obedient, trembles like a frightened bird, perfect for discipline. The crowd of alien traders laughed, loudly throwing out cruel jokes. The girl's hands shook as she clutched the chains that bound her wrists. She dared not raise her eyes, for she knew what awaited her. Pain, suffering, and endless obedience. Then something unusual happened. From the back of the crowd, a figure moved forward. A man, tall, quiet, and human. His steps were steady, and his eyes scanned the stage. The traders whispered among themselves. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most saw them only. In stories or as wandering merchants, the girl noticed the shift in the crowd. She glanced up for the briefest second and saw him. His face was unreadable, his eyes sharp but calm. She quickly looked down again, fear gripping her heart. She thought, perhaps this human will be even worse. Perhaps he will enjoy breaking me more than the others. The auctioneer called for the bidding to start. Voices rose, numbers shouted across the square. The girl's chest tightened with every call. Each voice was a promise of chains. Each number was another step into darkness, and then his voice came, low but firm. The human raised his hand, making a bid. The crowd turned, surprised. Some laughed, others sneered. Why would a human waste money on such a weak creature? Someone hissed. Perhaps he is foolish, or perhaps he has darker desires. Another whispered. The girl's knees shook, her fear deepened. She had seen cruelty in many forms, and she believed this human would be no different. The bidding ended. Quickly, the other traders grew bored, shaking their heads. For them, the girl was worthless, too frail, too broken. Only a fool would waste credits on her. The hammer came down. Sold to the human, the auctioneer shouted. His voice filled the market, ending the noise for a moment. The girl froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Her chains rattled as she trembled harder. This was it. This was the moment her fate would change once more. Her heart told her the same lie it always whispered. It will be worse than before. The human walked toward the stage slowly. The guards smirked as they shoved the girl forward. She nearly fell, but caught herself. The human stopped in front of her. For a heartbeat, silence filled the air. She braced herself for the first strike, for the harsh grip, for the cruel voice that would soon command her. But instead he simply looked at her. His eyes softened just a little, not with pity but with something she had never seen before. Respect. He reached into his coat and handed over the credits. Without hesitation, his hand was steady, calm, as if this moment was not strange for him at all. The guards unlocked her collar roughly, throwing the broken chain aside. The sound rang out like thunder in her ears. Her neck felt strangely light, but she dared not move. She waited, breathless, certain that the cruel game was about to begin. The human bent slightly, his voice low, meant only for her. You are free now, he whispered. The word struck her harder than any whip ever had. She blinked in confusion, her mouth opening, but no sound came. Surely she had misheard. Surely this was a trick. No one ever said such words in a slave market. And yet, his eyes did not look like a liar's eyes. They looked steady, honest, and strong. Her whole body trembled as the crowd erupted into laughter. Free? A slave free? Someone shouted. The human is mad. Another yelled. The voices mocked, the jokes stung, but the man ignored them all. He simply turned and began to walk away, leaving space for her to follow. The girl's heart pounded. Her legs refused to move. Fear battled with a small spark of something else inside her. Hope. She had not felt it in years, but it was there, faint and fragile. She stood frozen, chains gone, but mind still trapped. Could she really be free? Or was this the cruelest trick of all? The market's noise swallowed her thoughts. The laughter of the traders burned her ears. The human's footsteps grew softer as he walked into the crowd. He did not look back. He did not command. He did not drag her. He simply walked, waiting for her choice. For the first time in her life, the decision was hers. She stood trembling, staring at the empty space where her chains had been. Her heart beat fast, her throat dry. Behind her was the life she knew. Chains, cruelty, darkness. Ahead was the unknown, the human, and his strange words, and with shaking legs she took her first step. The market square still buzzed with noise. Even after the human had taken the girl from the stage, the laughter and whispers followed them like shadows. The traders could not understand why he had paid good credits for someone so weak, so broken. Some said he was foolish, others said he had hidden desires, but no one could imagine the truth. The girl's chains were gone, but she still walked, as if bound. Her thin wrists trembled at her sides, and her steps were small and hesitant. She kept her eyes fixed on the ground. Every heartbeat felt like thunder in her chest. She thought, he will hurt me once the crowd cannot see. That was always how it began. The kind words, the false gentleness, the cruel strike when no one watched. The human walked ahead calmly, not dragging her, not forcing her. His stride was steady, and his eyes stayed forward. He did not speak as they left the square. He did not laugh at the traders' jokes. He simply moved with quiet purpose, as though he had no need to explain himself to anyone. The girl expected orders. She expected him to tell her to crawl, to kneel, to beg. But no words came, only silence. Silence more confusing than cruelty. At least cruelty she understood. Silence left her lost. Finally, when the noise of the market was far behind them, the girl whispered in a shaking voice, "Master, what do you want me to do?" Her words cracked with fear. She dared not look at him. Her shoulders tightened, waiting for his anger. The human stopped walking. He turned his head slightly, his eyes meeting hers for the first time outside the market. His voice was quiet, steady. "Do not call me that." The girl froze, her heart leapt into her throat. Had she spoken wrong already? She whispered again, even smaller. "Then, what should I call you?" He thought for a moment, then answered, "My name is Daniel." The girl blinked, confused. No master had ever given her a name, not his own, not even hers. Slaves had no need for names, only commands. She whispered again, barely audible. "Daniel." Her lips formed the word clumsily, as though it were forbidden. Daniel nodded once, satisfied, and began walking again. He did not explain further. He did not demand obedience. He simply kept moving. They reached the edge of the colony. The crowded streets gave way to quieter paths lined with small homes. Each one was built of stone and steel, patched together from scraps. Life here was hard, not rich like the traders' halls. Dust rose under their feet, and the air smelled of earth rather than metal. Daniel led her to a small house, plain and weathered. Its door creaked as he pushed it open. Inside it was simple but clean. A wooden table stood in the center, a small fire burned in the hearth, and shelves lined with tools and supplies filled the walls. The girl stepped inside carefully. Her body remained tense, waiting for the moment the trap would be revealed. Every corner of the room looked like a cage to her. Every shadow looked like danger. She whispered, "Where should I stay?" Daniel looked at her with calm eyes, then motioned to a chair at the table. "Sit," he said. His tone was not harsh, not commanding. It was simple, almost gentle. The girl hesitated. Her legs shook as she moved toward the chair. She sat down, slowly, her thin hands gripping the edge of the wood. Her eyes darted toward the door, the window, searching for escape if this was a trick. Daniel turned to the hearth, lifting a pot from the fire. A warm smell filled the air, thick and rich. The girl's stomach growled loudly. She pressed her hands against her belly, ashamed of the noise. Daniel placed a bowl of steaming stew in front of her. The sight of food made her heart ache, but she did not move. She stared at it, as though it were poisoned. Her voice cracked as she asked, "What do you want from me?" Daniel sat across from her. His voice was steady, without hesitation. "Eat." Her chest tightened. She could not believe it. No master ever fed her first. She was always fed last, scraps and bones, sometimes nothing at all. Her hands shook. As she lifted the spoon, she paused, her eyes filling with tears, and whispered, "Why?" Daniel leaned back slightly, his gaze calm. "Because you are hungry." The words felt unreal. They wrapped around her heart in a way she did not understand. Her tears slipped down her face as she took the first bite. The taste of warmth filled her mouth. It was simple food, but to her it felt like a feast. She ate slowly, still afraid it would be taken away. But Daniel did not move. He let her eat in peace. When the bowl was empty, she whispered again, I do not understand."
"Why by me, if not to—"
Her words broke. She could not finish. Her voice was too full of fear. Daniel's eyes softened. "No one should live in chains," he said. His voice carried no anger, no pride, only quiet truth. The girl looked down, her tears dripping onto the table. Her whole body trembled. She wanted to believe, but her heart was chained tighter than her wrists had ever been. She whispered, "If I believe you and you lie, it will hurt more than any whip." Daniel did not answer at once. He simply stood, taking the empty bowl and placed it on the shelf. His silence was not cruel. It was patient, as though he understood that trust could not be forced, only given. The girl sat frozen, her heart torn between fear and hope. She thought of the chains lying broken on the market floor, and the strange man who had bought her not as a master, but as something she could not yet name. In that quiet room, with the fire crackling and her stomach no longer empty, she realized her story had changed, but whether it was for freedom or for another kind of cage, she still did not know. The night in the colony was quiet, but inside the girl's heart there was no rest. She sat at the table long after the bowl was empty, her thin fingers gripping the edge of the wood as though it could protect her. The fire's glow painted the walls in soft light, but she felt only shadows inside her. Daniel moved about the room with steady steps. He said little. He placed tools back on their shelves, checked the fire, and finally sat in a chair across from her. His calmness unsettled her more than shouting would have. She was used to anger, to cruelty, to endless orders, but silence. Silence was something new. She finally whispered, her voice breaking, "What do you want me to do tonight, Master?" She stopped herself, remembering his words. "Daniel," she added quickly, afraid he would strike her for the mistake, but Daniel only shook his head. "You do not need to do anything," he said quietly. "You are not my servant." The girl's lips parted in confusion. Her heart raced faster. She whispered, "Then why am I here?" Daniel leaned back, his eyes meeting hers. "Because you needed someone to take you away from that place," he answered. His tone was calm, but his words carried weight. Her chest ached. The simplicity of his answer cut through her fear, but it also confused her more. No one had ever done something for her without expecting something in return. She hugged her thin arms around herself, whispering, "I do not understand." The fire cracked softly, filling the silence. Outside, The wind pressed against the walls, carrying dust through the cracks. The world felt still, as if waiting for her next choice. Daniel stood, walking toward the door. He opened it, the night air rushing inside, cool and dry. He looked back at her and said, "Come walk with me." Her stomach twisted. Fear clamped onto her chest. The last time a master had told her to walk, it had ended in chains. She shook her head quickly. "No, please. I will obey here. Just do not." Her voice faded, her body shaking. Daniel's expression did not harden. He did not shout. He simply said, "You are free. That means you can choose." Then he stepped outside, leaving the door open behind him. The girl sat frozen. The open door called to her like a strange dream. Her mind screamed that it was a trap. If you step outside, he will bind you. If you run, he will hunt you. Her legs trembled beneath the table. Yet another voice inside her whispered, "What if it is true? What if he means it?" After long moments, she rose. Her steps were small, unsteady. She walked to the door. Her hand gripped the frame as though it were the last barrier. She looked out. Daniel stood a short distance away. Back to her, looking at the stars. He did not call to her. He did not threaten. He simply waited. Slowly, she stepped outside. The night air brushed against her skin, strange and clean. Her eyes lifted to the sky. For years she had seen it only through bars or the gaps of wooden cages. Now it stretched endless and wide, filled with stars that shimmered like tiny fires. Daniel glanced at her, a small nod of approval. "This is what freedom feels like," he said softly. Her throat tightened. She did not believe it yet, but her heart longed for it. She walked beside him, her eyes darting to every shadow, every corner, ready for the trick to reveal itself. Yet nothing happened. No chains, no orders, no strikes, only quiet steps in the night. They walked past empty homes, past fields of dry earth where crops struggled to grow. The colony was poor, nothing like the glittering markets or the shining cities of the galaxy. Yet the silence here felt different, not heavy with cruelty, but gentle. At last they reached the edge of a small ridge. From there the land spread wide, mountains in the distance, rivers glimmering faintly under the moonlight. The girl's breath caught in her chest. It was vast, beautiful, untouchable. She whispered, "I never thought the world could look like this." Daniel stood beside her, his hands in his pockets. "The world is bigger than the cages they kept you in," he said. His voice carried no pride, only truth. The girl trembled, her eyes filling with tears. For the first time in many years, they were not tears of pain, but of something she could not name. She hugged her arms tight and whispered, "If this is freedom, it is frightening." Daniel nodded slowly. "It always is at first." His calm acceptance left her shaken. She expected him to demand that she be grateful, to thank him, to swear loyalty. But he asked for none of those things. He simply let her stand there, trembling and staring at the stars. Minutes passed. Silence wrapped around them. The girl dared to take a step closer to the ridge. Her bare feet touched the cool grass. She felt the earth, the wind, the stars above. For a moment she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, he was not lying. Still, fear clawed inside her. What if tomorrow he revealed his true nature? What if this was all a game? She whispered softly, so soft he almost did not hear. "If I trust you and you hurt me, it will kill me." Daniel did not answer right away. His eyes stayed on the horizon. At last, he said, "Then I must never hurt you." The words landed heavy in her heart, not as a promise but as a simple fact. And for the first time, the girl allowed herself to take one step closer to him. Not out of obedience, but out of choice. The night stretched wide before them. The stars burned bright, and though her body still trembled, her soul had taken its first step into the unknown. The walk back to the small house felt longer than the path they had taken out. For the girl, every step was filled with doubt. Fear lingered like a shadow she could not escape. Each time Daniel slowed down, she thought he would turn and strike her, but he never did. His silence carried no threat. Only patience? When they entered the house again, the fire was still burning softly. The warmth touched her chilled skin and reminded her that she had eaten once already. The taste of that stew still lingered in her memory like a dream. It had been the first real meal she had eaten in years. She sat quietly at the table, her thin hands folded together nervously. Daniel moved around the room with steady purpose. He placed a few more logs on the fire, poured water into the pot, and set it back over the flames. The smell of fresh herbs filled the air. The girl's stomach growled loudly. She pressed her hands against it, ashamed, her cheeks burned with embarrassment. She expected him to laugh, to mock her, to tell her she was greedy. Instead, Daniel only glanced at her and said calmly, "Hunger is nothing to be ashamed of." The words caught her off guard. She lowered her gaze, her heart racing. His kindness frightened her more than cruelty, because she did not know how to protect herself from it. Cruelty she understood. Kindness was a mystery. Minutes passed. The fire crackled, filling the silence with warmth. Finally, Daniel placed another bowl in front of her. Steam rose from it. Carrying the rich scent of vegetables and spices, he set a spoon beside it and sat across from her. The girl did not move. Her hands remained in her lap, her eyes fixed on the bowl as though it were a trap. She whispered, "What will you ask of me after this?" Daniel leaned back slightly, his expression calm. "Nothing," he said. Her chest tightened. She shook her head. "No, there must be something. Nothing is free. Not food, not shelter, not even breath." Her voice trembled as she spoke. She waited for him to reveal the hidden price, but Daniel did not move. His voice steady. "You are free. That means you do not owe me anything." Her throat tightened. She wanted to scream that he was lying, but her heart ached because a small part of her wanted to believe him. She whispered, "Then why?" Daniel looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because you are alive, and that is reason enough." The words hit her harder than chains ever had. Her hands shook as she reached for the spoon, her fingers clumsy from years of fear. Slowly, she lifted it to her lips. The taste filled her mouth, rich and warm. Tears slid down her cheeks before she could stop them. She tried to hide her face, but Daniel did not speak. He did not mock her or question her tears. He simply let her eat. She ate slowly, afraid the bowl would vanish at any moment, afraid he would snatch it away as punishment. But the bowl remained, and he waited silently until she finished every bite. When she set the spoon down, her chest rose and fell quickly. She whispered, "I do not understand you." Daniel folded his arms, leaning back in his chair. "You do not need to," he said calmly. "Just eat, rest, and breathe." The girl shook her head. "No, that is not how the world works. I was taught that everything has a price. My body, my breath, my life, all of it belonged to others." Her voice grew smaller. "So why do you give and take nothing?" Daniel's gaze softened. "Because someone must break the chain. If not me, then who?" Her heart ached. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but the warmth in her belly and the softness of his tone silenced her. She lowered her head and whispered, "If this is another trick, if one day you show your true face, it will destroy me." Daniel's reply came slow, steady. "Then I must never show such a face." Silence filled the room. Only the fire spoke, crackling gently. The girl wrapped her arms around herself, her thin shoulders shaking. She felt something she had not felt in years. Safety. It was fragile, like glass, but it was there. Later, when Daniel prepared a bed of blankets in the corner, she watched him closely, expecting some demand. Instead, he simply laid them out and stepped aside. "Rest," he said. The girl approached slowly, her legs trembling. She touched the blanket with her fingertips. It was soft, warmer than the cold ground she was used to. She lay down carefully, her body stiff. She whispered into the quiet, "Why do you not lock me up so I cannot run?" Daniel's voice came from his chair near the fire, calm and sure. Because freedom means you can run if you wish. Her chest tightened, her heart beat painfully. She closed her eyes, the weight of his words pressing deep inside her. She did not know if she could ever run because for the first time she did not want to. The fire burned low. The night wrapped the small house in silence. The girl drifted into uneasy sleep, her last thought a mix of fear and hope. Perhaps this man is different. Perhaps mercy is real. The night stretched long inside the small house. The fire had burned down to faint embers, casting soft light that danced along the walls. Daniel sat quietly in his chair, his eyes half closed. His body at rest but his mind awake. The girl lay curled on the blankets in the corner, her thin body trembling even in sleep. Her dreams were not gentle. They came sharp and cruel, filled with chains, whips, and the mocking laughter of her old masters. She twisted in her sleep, her hands clawing at the blanket. Her voice broke into the silence, a soft scream. "Please, not again." Daniel's eyes opened at once. He rose quickly but carefully, crossing the room. He did not touch her. He did not shake her awake. He knelt a short distance away, his voice calm but steady. "You are safe, it is only a dream." The girl gasped awake, her eyes wide, filled with terror. She scrambled back until her shoulders hit the wall, her breath ragged, her voice shook. "Do not hurt me. I will obey. I will do whatever you ask." Daniel raised his hands slowly, showing her he carried no chains. His voice remained soft. "No one will hurt you here, not now, not ever." Tears streamed down her face. She pressed her back against the wall as though she could melt into it. Her heart hammered so loudly she could hear it in her ears. She whispered again and again, "I will obey, I will obey." Daniel shook his head gently. "You do not need to obey. You need only rest." The words confused her more than comforted her. Her mind could not fit them into the world she knew. Obedience was survival, and survival was all she had ever understood. Yet his eyes were steady, his tone carried no lies. He truly meant what he said. For the rest of the night, Daniel sat awake, his presence a quiet shield. The girl drifted in and out of restless sleep, but each time she stirred or whimpered, his calm voice anchored her back. She did not understand why he stayed, why he cared, but slowly her trembling lessened. When dawn touched the window, painting the room in pale light, the girl sat up, her hair hung over her face, her eyes heavy. She whispered, "Why do you not punish me for my weakness?" Daniel answered simply, "Because fear is not weakness, it is what happens when others have been cruel too long." Her chest ached at his words. She lowered her gaze, whispering, "I do not know how to live without fear." Daniel looked at her with quiet strength. "Then I will show you." The morning passed with simple tasks. Daniel tended the fire, checked his tools, and stepped outside to fetch water. The girl followed, her steps small and hesitant. She watched him carefully, always expecting the mask to fall, expecting his true cruelty to appear, but it never did. He worked quietly, never raising his voice, never forcing her hand. Still, the shadows of fear clung to her. When a loud sound echoed from the colony streets, she flinched, dropping the bucket. Her heart leapt into her throat. She was sure the guards had come for her. Her body froze, tears rising to her eyes. Daniel picked up the bucket without a word. He set it beside her and said calmly, "Noise does not always mean danger." But her fear would not leave. She whispered, "They will come. They will take me back." Daniel's jaw tightened. His voice sharpened slightly, not in anger at her, but at the thought. "No one will take you back, not while I breathe." His tone carried iron. The girl looked at him, shocked. No master had ever spoken of her life as worth protecting. She trembled not from fear this time, but from something she could not name. That evening, whispers began to reach the edge of the colony. Traders who had lost their prize in the market were angry. They laughed in dark corners, spreading rumors. They said the human had broken tradition, had stolen what belonged to them. Some swore they would make him pay. The girl overheard snatches of talk from passing strangers. Her heart clenched. She hurried back to Daniel, her voice shaking. They are coming. You must give me back. If you do not, they will kill you. Daniel looked at her steadily. I will not give you back. Her eyes widened. She cried, Why? I am nothing. My life is worth less than yours. If you keep me, you will die. If you return me, you will live. Daniel's voice grew firm. No life is worth less than another, and I will not let cruelty win. The girl covered her face with her hands, her tears falling hard. She had begged for mercy once in her life, and now someone had given it to her, but the cost terrified her. If Daniel stood against the traitors, he would suffer, perhaps even die, and she could not understand why he would risk everything for her. That night she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her body trembled, not from hunger or cold, but from fear of what was to come. Outside, the colony was restless. Shadows moved. In the streets, whispers thick with danger. Daniel sat by the fire, sharpening a small blade, his expression calm, his hands steady. He glanced at her once and said softly, Sleep. You will need your strength. She closed her eyes, but sleep would not come. Her heart was heavy with guilt. Her soul whispered that she should run, that if she disappeared, the traitors would leave Daniel alone. Yet another voice inside her whispered that running would mean chains again, darkness again, and she could not face that. Between those two voices she trembled, caught between fear and hope. For the first time in her life, someone had chosen to stand for her. But would mercy be enough to fight the cruelty waiting in the shadows? The night was heavy with silence. The wind pressed against the small house, carrying with it the scent of dust and distant smoke. Daniel sat near the fire, sharpening his blade with calm, steady movements. His face was unreadable, his eyes focused, but his ears never missed a sound outside. The girl lay on her blankets, her body tense. Sleep refused to come. Every creak of the wooden walls, every distant shout from the colony streets made her heart jump. She clutched the blanket close, whispering again and again, They are coming. They will not let me go. Daniel finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. Yes, they are coming. He placed the blade down on the table. But they will not take you. The girl's chest tightened. She pushed herself up, her eyes wide with fear. You do not understand. They are many. You are one man. You cannot fight them all. Daniel's gaze softened only slightly. Then I will fight until I cannot stand. Mercy is not real if it runs at the first sign of danger. Her breath caught. The words shook her deeply. He spoke as if her life mattered, as if saving her was worth any risk. She whispered, her voice breaking. Then I will fight too. Daniel turned to her sharply, but not with anger. No, you have suffered enough. You will not suffer more tonight. Her tears welled, but her voice grew stronger. If they take you, I will be chained again. I will not go back. I would rather die here than return. For a moment, Daniel held her gaze. He saw the truth in her trembling eyes. Slowly, he nodded. Then, if the time comes, you stand with me. The hours stretched thin. The fire burned low. The girl's stomach knotted with dread. Then, voices, harsh and angry, echoed from outside. Shadows moved against the walls. The sound of boots crunched in the dirt. The door rattled. A voice sneered. Human, open the door. You have what belongs to us. Daniel stood, his hand gripping the blade. His voice was calm but strong. She belongs to no one. The laughter outside was cruel. Then you have chosen death. The door burst open. Rough hands pushed it wide, and a group of traitors stormed inside. Their eyes burned with greed and rage. Some carried iron rods, others crude knives. They spread out, circling the small room like wolves. The girl cried out, her body shrinking back against the wall. Her chains were gone, but in this moment she felt them again. Her breath came quick, her heart racing. Daniel stepped forward, placing himself between her and the intruders. His stance was firm, his blade steady in his hand. He spoke clearly. Leave now, this is your only warning, the traitors sneered. One stepped forward, swinging his rod. Daniel moved fast, blocking the strike and pushing the man back. The clash echoed in the small room. The others rushed in. The fight exploded in firelight. Daniel's movements were sharp, every strike measured. He knocked one man down, cut another's arm. Blood splattered. The floor. The girl pressed herself against the wall, her heart breaking with fear. But then something inside her shifted. As one traitor lunged for Daniel's back, she grabbed the heavy bowl from the table. With all her strength, she struck the man's head. The sound cracked. He stumbled, stunned. Daniel turned and finished the fight with a single blow. Her hands shook violently, but she did not drop the bowl. Her breath came fast, her eyes wide. She had never fought back before, never dared. But tonight she could not stand by. Tonight she chose to fight. The battle raged on. Daniel took a strike to his shoulder, blood soaking his shirt. He gritted, his teeth but did not fall. Another man lunged, but Daniel drove him back with a powerful swing. The girl screamed, "Behind you." Her warning saved him from a blade that would have cut his side. Together they fought. She threw whatever she could grab. Wood, tools, even burning logs from the fire. Her arms were weak, but her will was strong. Daniel's blade flashed. In the light, his breath heavy but steady. One by one, the traitors fell, beaten, bleeding, or fleeing into the night. At last, the room grew silent. The floor was marked with blood and broken wood. The traitors who still lived crawled away, cursing and shouting threats. "This is not over, human. You will regret this." Daniel stood in the center of the room, his chest heaving. His blade dripped with blood. His shoulder bled freely. The girl dropped the cracked bowl from her hands, rushing to his side. Her voice shook. "You are hurt." He sank into the chair, wincing but still steady. "A wound is nothing. You are safe." Her tears flowed as she knelt before him. "Why do you keep saying that? Why risk yourself for me? You should have given me back. You would have lived." Daniel looked at her with eyes that carried no regret. "Living without mercy is not living. I would rather bleed than hand you back to chains." Her body shook. Her hands pressed against his wound to stop the bleeding. She whispered, "Then I will never leave your side, never." For the first time in her life, she did not tremble from fear. She trembled from something else. Hope. She had fought. He had stood for her, and together they had survived. The firelight flickered over them. The shadows of fear still lingered, but they no longer ruled her heart. For tonight, she had seen that courage and mercy were stronger than chains. The small house smelled of smoke and iron. The floor was stained with blood. Shattered wood lay scattered across the ground, and the door hung broken from its frame. The girl knelt beside Daniel, pressing cloth against his shoulder. Her hands shook, but her movements were careful. Her eyes filled with fear for him. Not. For herself, Daniel's face was pale, sweat on his brow, but his eyes were steady. He gritted his teeth as she worked, yet no sound of pain left his lips. When her tears dripped onto his arm, he whispered, "Do not cry. I am still alive." The girl's chest ached. "Alive because you fought for me," she whispered back. "Alive because you would not let them take me." Her voice trembled. "No one has ever done that, not once in my life." Daniel gave a faint smile, though weak. "Then it is time." "You knew someone would." She lowered her head. Her heart pounded with a feeling she had never known before. For years her world had been chains, cages, cruelty, and lies. Yet in this small house, with this wounded man, she felt something else. Safety. Trust, even belonging. As dawn crept through the broken door, the colony stirred. Neighbors whispered of the fight. Some were afraid, some angry, others quietly amazed. A human had stood against the traitors and lived. A human had defended a slave girl not for profit, but for mercy. The girl helped Daniel lie down on his bed. She covered him with a blanket and sat close, refusing to move. Each time he closed his eyes, her heart seized, fearing he would not open them again. Yet his breathing remained steady, slow and strong. Hours passed, and she whispered stories to him, not of joy but of pain. Her life poured out like a broken river. She spoke of cages, of nights without food, of the whip that left scars down her back. She had never told anyone, but now the words fell freely. Daniel listened quietly, never judging, never turning away. At last, she whispered, "All my life I thought I was worthless. I thought my only value was how well I obeyed, but you risked your life to show me I am more." Daniel opened his eyes, his voice quiet but firm. "You were always more, you simply needed someone to remind you." Her tears fell again, but this time they were not heavy with despair. They were soft, lighter, as though her heart was letting go of some of its pain. She reached for his hand, her fingers trembling. "Then let me remind you too, you are not alone, not anymore." That evening she stepped outside for the first time without chains in her mind. The air smelled of dust and wild grass. The sky stretched wide, painted orange by the setting sun. For years she had looked at the sky as if it were unreachable. Now it felt close. It felt hers. Daniel stepped out behind her, his arm bandaged, his body slower but still strong. He stood beside her, his eyes on the horizon. "What do you see?" he asked softly. The girl breathed deep. "A world I never thought I could touch," she whispered. Her eyes shimmered with hope. "A world that does not look like a cage anymore." Daniel nodded. "That is freedom." Her heart swelled. She turned to him, her voice stronger than ever. "Then I will walk into it, but not alone." She reached out her hand, not as a servant, not as a slave, but as an equal. Daniel looked at her hand for a moment, then placed his own in it. His grip was warm, steady, and full of quiet promise. The days that followed were not easy. The traitors did not forget, the colony whispered. Some saw Daniel as a fool, others as dangerous. But the girl did not tremble the way she once had. She stood beside him, her fear still there but weaker, replaced by courage. Each morning she helped tend the fire, fetch water, and mend what had been broken. But these were not orders, they were choices. She chose to help, she chose to stay. And every evening, Daniel reminded her again, "You are free." One night, as stars filled the sky, she whispered, "When I first saw you, I thought you would be another master. I thought you would break me like the rest." Her voice shook. "But you gave me something I did not believe in anymore." Daniel asked gently, "What is that?" Her lips trembled as she answered, "Mercy." She paused, then added with strength, "And hope." Daniel's eyes softened. "Then hold on to both, for they are stronger than chains." She smiled, a small, fragile smile, but it was real. For the first time in her life, her smile was not forced, not stolen. It was hers. The fire crackled, the stars glimmered, and in that quiet moment she no longer saw herself as the trembling slave girl of the market. She saw herself as something new, someone beginning again. And as Daniel sat beside her, she whispered softly, "Tomorrow will be our beginning, not theirs." The night carried her words into the sky, a promise of a life no longer bound by chains, but by courage, mercy, and the fragile yet unbreakable bond between a human and the girl he had chosen to save.